And I have it written out here, and it's very funny because I keep adding adapt, 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 adapt. And then after you've adapted, adapt a little bit more and then adapt. The way that you habitually behave is directly related to the language of your mind as you think it and feel it, and it travels through your nervous system to produce behavior. So that means it's connected. It's a fancy way of saying the mind and the body are connected.
Hello. Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, or good night, depending on what part of the world you're visiting us. I am Daniel Marcos, CEO of the Growth Institute and the host of the Learning Up podcast, where we talk with amazing thought leaders and CEOs. And how do you grow? We know we want to grow our companies, want to be able to make more money, have a bigger impact. But all of that happens once you've grown internally, you've got better tools, better mindset. And today is going to be exactly about mindset and tools for the mind to really be able to grow yourselves. Today I'm with a great friend, Gina Mollicone Long. And let me give a quick intro and then we'll start the conversation. Gina is a serial entrepreneur and global success coach. She leverages her academic prowess in engineering, philosophy, blending modern and ancient performance techniques. She has an amazing college or academic, but also working with many CEOs having great change. And you're going to hear a little bit about that. She's the co-founder of the Greatness Group, where she does transformative coaching and really helps CEOs and leaders change their tools in their mind and go to the next level. Use a lot of NLP, hypnotherapies, and Asian practice that shape universal mindset and how you think. She has passion and breakthrough coaching format. Let me see. And she has written several books and papers around NLP and really how to get your mind to the next level. So first, Gina, how are you? Great to have you here on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, especially, so busy. Everybody's so busy. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, we put the podcast like a month ago, the book, so it's good that we're able to connect now. So first, you're in Toronto. I understand it's snowing crazy in Toronto today.
It's snowing right now. We're just going to pretend we don't see that.
Come on. I used to live in Toronto. Remember, we saw each other several times there. It's a great city. But wow, 2 or 3 times a year, it's tough to be in the city.
It doesn't cope well with the snow.
No, it doesn't go well.
People move too quickly here.
By the way, we had snow in Texas last week. And the Houston airport was closed like 6 hours.
I can't even imagine.
Like this of snow, but we just don't even have plows or anything. They shut the airport like 6 hours.
I can't even. That's just the sign. Go home, make a cup of tea. That's it.
All right. So let's start with the background. You have amazing academic background in engineering, philosophy, science. Like, why all these diverse academics?
It's taken me my entire life to figure it out. But bottom line is I'm obsessed with systems. And so when I was a young person, studying engineering was obviously studying systems. And I loved it. And then when I went to work, my first corporate career was at Procter & Gamble. And what I didn't appreciate at the time, but can in retrospect, is understand that I loved it there because of the systems. There's so many systems at P&G and it works so well. And then it just kind of went from there. And so I'm trained in lots of systems, and that's the way I look at them. So people often get surprised when they say, oh, you have a master's in the philosophy of science and religion, but those are systems. Yeah. And so I study from that eagle's eye view, all the systems. So hypnotherapy is a system, NLP is a system, engineering is a system, religion is a system, religions are systems. So this is all just system. And then as you can imagine, what does a coach do? A coach uses systems. So it's very easy for me.
You have systems, you have engineering, as you could see on the board behind you. You have all these hieroglyphics and formulas. So you have engineering, you have all the systems, but you also understand the brain of human beings. Amazing. So how do you went into all the psychology and the brain and really understand human beings?
Well, again, back to the system. The human being is a system. And this is something I recognized early on, and it's what led to the writing of my first book is, I started what emerged from my academic training, if you will, is, wow, the human mind is like a machine. And I already know how to do that. Like I've been trained to work mechanistically inside the engineering model. I wonder if that works inside the mind. And so the leap for me was really the presupposition that the mind is like a machine. And then if you can tinker with the mind, with the components of the machine, could you make it run better, like in a car engine? And the answer I found was very easy to understand is yes. In all the mechanistic models that we teach at Greatness U, they all have that as their metaphor. They take some mechanistic viewpoint of the mind, tinker with some variables of the mind that have very real results in the performance of the mind as a machine. And so we make that transition. It's very easy for us, obviously, because that's what we do. But then it's easy for our clients and our students to understand because we kind of make the leap for them from where they are into this model. And then when they start to understand the power of it, then they can apply it.
And when you learn it, like why after being engineer and system, you start getting into the brain?
Well, I was always interested in people. I just didn't know it was a job. Right. So I think what did me a disservice or service, I don't know. It's hard to say really, because, I thought after all my fooling around with, like when I was 16 years old, I held in Canada, we used to have this national coaching certification program for sports. And when I was 16 years old, I had 5 sports in the NCCP, in the National Coaching Certification Program. So clearly it was a passion of mine, right? I was coaching swimming and diving and soccer and volleyball and basketball. And it was clear, and then gymnastics. So clearly I was a coach, but I didn't know that was a job. And so I went to engineering because I was good at math and science. And then I graduated and I got a job with Procter & Gamble because it was all very sort of planned. Not, it was like you just do what the next step is. And then I think once my brain fully formed at 25, I was like, hold on a second. I'm really passionate about people and reaching their greatness, and really, and the presupposition for me is very different from others, which is I operate from the standpoint that everybody already has this. Nobody really needs me or what I do. What I do and what we bring to the table is we help people get to that greatness faster and with less effort. And so you already have everything you need. So I would look at a human being and I would see the potential, but you have to hook it up. It's like I can see where the greatness is, but if it's never hooked up to the resources, then we're never going to see that in reality. So I just became obsessed with that. And then, where do I study? I study literally everywhere and everything. And I suppose that's my natural predisposition to learning.
We could even see the way you talk, like how you have so many things that you're pulling all together and telling a story based on that. So, but you're also an entrepreneur, right? So what lessons you've learned as an entrepreneur that really could help other leaders, how you can influence other leaders to be better? And what's your coaching philosophy to business leaders?
Well, again, it comes back to you already have everything you need. So it's really quite simple. And when you ask me, you're an entrepreneur, because we're going through a complete renaissance right now, as you know. If you run a training and a team building company, 2020 wasn't a good year. And when the bottom fell out of our business and all the pipelines were emptied, like the whole thing was drained. It was like,
Yeah, you're a speaker, you do coaching and programs for companies, and then everything went remote.
Yeah, but our company, like at the time I was traveling and speaking, we were doing the trainings in the classrooms, like, because we teach coaches how to use all these tools. And we had a team building division, which we thought was separate, which all of them died at once and all the pipelines emptied. And so we pivoted very quickly, and I'm very proud of the pivot that we made and everything online and recorded things. And you and I did tons of stuff over that time. And then about 6 months ago, we had to come to terms with, like, are we going to pick up the business and rebuild it? Because the pivot wasn't the rebuild. And I think we got confused with that for a while. And so what we decided was to actually now rebuild. We have the resources. And so we're rebuilding. And I always think of that, that bionic man. I don't know how old people are who listen to this, but like we're going to rebuild it stronger and faster. And so we're now in the throes of that rebuild. And that meant pulling the rug out from underneath the pivot. So we on purpose did that. And the thing that underpins all of that, and I know most entrepreneurs can relate to the rapid change, is that if you are clear on what you want, very clear on what you want, and you have flexibility of behavior, then you can adapt to anything and create anything in your environment. In fact, when I'm teaching business people specifically, if I'm teaching CEOs or executive leaders, I say there's only 3 rules that a leader really needs to adhere to. And if they do, they will be the absolute best version. And this applies obviously for entrepreneurs. 1, be at cause. Be at the cause of your environment. So you can see behind me, this says TFAR. That means that all the results start in the mind. Be at the cause. You are in charge of your mind. Therefore, you're in charge of your results. I don't care what happened. I didn't say blame. It just said accept responsibility for everything that happens, even the stuff you don't want to happen. Because when you retain responsibility, you retain power to choose a behavior. Number 2, very important, make sure you create connections. I cannot emphasize enough the importance of being able to create connections with anybody at any time around any subject, because as a leader, you're going to have to either influence or work together. So you got to be able to create those connections. And then finally, and I have it written out here, and it's very funny because I keep adding, adapt, 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 adapt. And then after you've adapted, adapt a little bit more and then adapt, right? So flexibility of behavior is by far the most important presupposition.
Interesting. All right. So let's go to your books. You have 2 books, Think or Sink, and The Secrets of Successful Failing. So why you wrote these books, and what do you teach on the books?
Well, The Secret of Successful Failing, I wrote as a way of actually changing my own reality. So I was face down in the mud in a particular time of my life, and I know people can relate. And what I realized was that your power doesn't come from never failing. It comes from being face down in the mud and deciding that you're going to get back up. And so I wrote a book about that. It's not a book about how to fail. It's about a book about how to rise, really, but also how to turn adversity into an advantage. And this is the paradox of adversity, is that if you are objective and you can remove the meaning and all of the patterns that you have around failure, or whatever you want to call that, it actually contains the key to your success, but you cannot be attached to it being different. And that's why I'm saying you have to be at cause. Because if you're at cause, the answer is usually in the problem. But if you're not, then you're just justifying the failure.
So repeat that. When you're at cause?
Oh boy. When you're at cause, you have the power to make a different choice. So when you're at cause, when you say, I'm in charge of me, I create my results and I create my not results. And when you look at a result that you thought you wanted something different, but you got this disaster in front of you, if you say, how can I make a different choice here to have a different outcome, then you retain power. And usually the answer is in the failure. But if you spend so much time looking at the failure and justifying it and licking your wounds and whatever people do, you've lost days, weeks, months, years in, there's a book that was written at near the same time called Fail Faster, right? Like, I play this video of this race, this NCAA running race where she falls down and gets up and runs and wins the race. And it's very motivational and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, it's so simple. She fell down, she got up and she ran, period. And in that fall, when she got up and she ran, she discovered she was faster than she ever thought she was. And it was the fall. And it was the getting up and running again, because that's based on, your goals, your objectives, your vision, who you are. You just do the thing you say you're going to do without excuses. And at some point, sometimes when you're face down in the mud, you discover you're made of more than you think you are.
So let me understand. We all know that most of our successes come from our biggest failures. As human beings, it's hard to learn from someone else's story. We need to learn internally and make mistakes and fall and all that. Why? You understand psychology like no one that I know. Why human beings, we need to have those falls to really change and not just say, hey, I want to do that.
Right.
Don't have the power to do it.
There's sort of 2 things to think about there. One is the inherent, so let's go back to this running race, because I often debrief this video for a while. So in this running race, she falls down, she gets up, she runs, she's lost, 100 feet, 50 meters, something like that. And she still wins. And it's very, very moving to watch. So she found out she was faster than she thought she was, because up until the point when she fell, they were neck and neck. And then all of a sudden she loses, all this space and she still wins. But imagine in the morning of the race, the coach saying to her, I really believe you can run faster today. That wouldn't typically change her belief. There's not enough inertia. There's not enough power to change the inertia of her belief. But the shock of the fall provides enough inertial force to shock the belief to the surface and challenge its falsity and prove it wrong. So the fall is the only thing with enough power to shock the belief into a changeable state. And then she can choose to believe that or not. Like some people will fall down in a race and they don't get up and they run. They blame the ref or try to take somebody else out. So it's not a given. It's how you approach. But so humans respond to in that big inertial change. Sometimes could respond by changing beliefs. It takes quite a force to change a belief. You can't just do it because you want to. Like I say this all the time. If it was just conscious minded thinking, you would just say your new belief and it would happen. But that is not how reality is. So if if it's something you really want, you're going to create a situation that's going to create enough force to change the belief. That's one way of answering that question. The other way is other people have gotten to where you're trying to go and they've already suffered these inertial force changes, if you will. And one of the most powerful parts of NLP is learning how to model success. By model is a fancy word for copy. How do you copy success for the purposes of getting you to where they got to faster and with less effort? And sometimes if someone else has done it, like if you see it in reality, that's enough to change the force of your belief. And so if you copy them exactly, not just their behaviors, but their thoughts, their beliefs, their strategies, everything. In NLP, we teach, the process of modeling. If you do that, you should be able to do what they did in half the time and half the effort.
So let me get to NLP a little bit. I learned about NLP for the first time around probably 20 years ago. And I never understood it well. And most importantly, I've never studied. And That's why I'm so excited that you're faculty of Growth Institute, because I'm learning a lot from you of NLP. But tell everyone, what is NLP and why it's so important?
Well, okay. So let me give you like a definition, because everybody scrambles for a definition. So NLP is how to use the language of the mind to replicate success. That's like a big, definition. The letters, the letters stand for neuro-linguistic programming. Well, what the hell does that mean? Well, neuro means your nervous system. Language means linguistic, is language, and programming means habits. So that's a fancy way of saying the way that you habitually behave is directly related to the language of your mind as you think it and feel it, and it travels through your nervous system to produce behavior. So that means it's connected. It's a fancy way of saying the mind and the body are connected. Yep. Okay. Now, why I love it is it's very mechanistic. So people will often say to me, ooh, NLP is a bit weird. And I'm like, that is the least weird thing I know. It is a very, very, and as an engineer, I can tell you, because when I sat in the classroom the first time, the engineer in me was like, oh, I love this, because it's step by step by step. It's actually very mental. It's very conscious minded. So you're working a lot with the mental processes, like how you think, what beliefs you think, where they're stored, but it also integrates the body. So it's a nice entry into mind body that doesn't leave you feeling like, oh my God, I just, fell down some hole and I don't understand. But when we teach our trainings, we actually teach 6 mechanistic models at once. And we're the only ones who do this now. And this is part of our relaunch, because the NLP is the sort of mental model. Think of NLP like the mind, the processes. But we also teach a mechanistic model called timeline therapy, which leverages temporal perspective to change meaning, which is emotional. So now we've got the mental component and the emotional component. We teach hypnosis, which does the same thing, but it does it on a physiological level. So hypnosis leverages a measurable brainwave state to allow you to change your mind. So there's 3 things now: mental, emotional, physiological. We wrap them up in 2 coaching systems. One I created, which is the accelerated change mechanisms, because I'm about making things happen faster. I'm very impatient. And the other one is an NLP coaching model, which is sort of like, if the whole thing's a machine, how do we wrap it all up so that you know which tool to use and when? And then the final mechanism that we've started teaching, and this is a new addition, but it's very, very needed, is the practice that is put forward by the Institute of Heart Math. Because what we're finding in these modern era is that people need resilience more than ever before. Things are changing so fast and so quickly, and it's so hard to know if your data is correct and if you're making decisions with correct data, with correct logic. It's just happening so quickly that we need more physiological resilience. So we've started teaching heart math to our coaches and their clients. And we find the 6 combined is giving people an actual toolbox that they can run with, because the mind is like a machine, but the mind is not so simple. It's mental, emotional, physiological. So you could just look at it from one angle, but if you look at it holistically, you end up making a very big impact in your results in the long run.
That's what you call the breakthrough? That's the program you call the breakthrough?
So the breakthrough takes all 6 of those mechanisms and wraps them up in a step-by-step process to create a breakthrough, regardless of what that is. And that's this drawing behind me, right? If you see point C behind me in the drawing, the big drawing in the middle, point C is the point at which you change. And change happens like this, right? Change is very quick. It's the lead up and the lead out that people spend so much time. But the change itself, the breakthrough is a point. It's a pivot point. And so
everything leads to that point.
Yeah. And so the reason why, let's say you want to make a change, the reason why people don't make changes is there's something they're stuck on. It's either a thought, a strategy, an emotion, or physiologically they don't have the power running properly in their body or whatever. So that has to be prepared. Once that's ready, change happens. Once change happens, you now need to know how to make it the dominant pattern. Just because a baby takes its first steps doesn't mean you take it down to the busiest corner and send it on its way. And so you have to repeat the successful behavior until it's the way you do it. Like, you can't not do it that way. You do it in your sleep. Then it's a new system.
So if someone wants to have a breakthrough, like, what are the typical breakthroughs they won't have in marriage, in business, in life, in what?
Well, so it does matter to me. I mean, I do private breakthrough, like I curate breakthroughs for my own private clients, but I don't take as many as you would think, because I spend actually most of my time teaching other coaches everything I do, because they can reach their people and they can reach. So it's if I just did one-on-one coaching, I'd be constrained by my time. So I spend a lot of time teaching others, coaches, leaders, managers, how to create that breakthrough. So it could be a little breakthrough. It could just be a breakthrough in your revenue. Could be a big breakthrough. Could be, you've been stuck with one foot in the corporate world and one foot as an entrepreneur, and you need to break through. Could be a marriage breakthrough. Could be a health breakthrough. To me, the content of the breakthrough is irrelevant. And this is what makes it so beautiful. These are mechanistic models. It doesn't matter. Like, if somebody knows how to fix a combustion engine, they can fix a combustion engine in any kind of car. So the breakthrough is for any kind of problem. It's just, I want to go from where I am, which is point A, to acme, which is the Greek word for highest point. That's my highest point. I want to go from A to acme as quickly as possible with the path of least resistance. That's the breakthrough model. So I do that for private clients. Some of my private clients, double the revenue, 100 times their companies, New York Times best-selling books. Doesn't matter. Yeah. Save a marriage.
So tell me how, we already talked about NLP, and then you use hypnotherapy. And a lot of people think about hypnotherapy and I'm going to do this spell on you and change it, right? Whatever.
Oh, for sure.
What is it, and why use them together? Why do you think it's more powerful using them together?
I literally, and I just posted, just to save time, I posted a 27-minute video on what hypnosis is and is not, and threw it on my YouTube channels, because people ask this question all the time, and it's the most misunderstood And it's the oldest mechanism, and people know about it, and they think they know, and you don't know. Hypnosis is so simple. Hypnosis leverages a natural brain wave speed. Okay, so let's say there's beta, alpha, theta, delta, and gamma. That everybody's kind of heard of those brainwave speeds. Beta is where most people, running around, busy. Alpha is this coveted state where you can enter into the flow state, Csikszentmihalyi and flow. So anybody listening to your podcast is going to know what the flow state is. So what hypnosis does is it leverages the unique characteristics of what we call the trance state. The trance state starts in and around the slow alpha brainwaves and continues through the slower brainwaves. But you can't access it in high alpha or beta. It has to be slow alpha. So hypnosis leverages the unique characteristics of this state to allow for the inception, i.e. the planting of new beliefs or new thoughts or new patterns, because they go underneath the conscious mind and the filter. So that's it. That's all it is. And now there are many ways to enter into hypnosis, and you can see behind me there's this little stair here.
Yep.
This little stairway.
Yep.
So this is the mechanism of this is it. This is 27 minutes video on this mechanism right here, because it's the way in which people have induced trances that have led to all the misconception about hypnosis. You can induce a trance in Las Vegas in a stage show, doing a whole, entertaining thing where somebody, once they're in a trance, they cluck like a chicken or whatever they do. And that's, people think it is. But you can induce a trance clinically using a script. That's what a hypnotherapist would do. You can induce a trance with bright lights shining in your pupils, because it'll change the brain's response to the way it's filtering information, as in some tyrannical world leaders. So you can induce a trance. And one of the most powerful ways to induce a trance is to plop a human being in front of a television screen. And when someone's watching TV, they look like this.
They look this. Yeah.
That's a trance. Now ask yourself, well, so if hypnosis uses the trance state to allow for inception, then what we say is induce a trance, then insert the suggestions, then close the trance. Well, if you're sitting in front of a TV, what are the suggestions? Advertising, right? Okay, so hello, you're telling me you think hypnosis is weird? It's one of the biggest industries on the planet. A Super Bowl ad is what, $3, $4, $5 million?
Easily.
So this is a powerful technique, people. And I'm not, people say good, bad, right, wrong. That's not for me to decide. I'm just the teacher of the mechanism. Whatever you do with it that's your karma, not mine. Right. So if you believe in what you do and you want to get where you're going faster with less effort, this is one of the oldest, easiest mechanisms to master, to put in different beliefs. If you're already accepting beliefs about which coffee to buy or which washing powder to buy, why wouldn't you learn how to accept beliefs about how awesome you are, or how effortless it will be, or how smart you are? Why wouldn't you accept those beliefs while you're in that state at the same time?
Makes all the sense.
So that's how we fill up our hypnosis weekends, because we run intro weekends, and it's full of business people, and we're getting our people off Facebook, which I was so against in the beginning, because they're like, no, we can reach the right person. I was like, you're insane. No, we're going to get a bunch of insane people. Right. But we're not. It's full. Like in our last course, 40% of the class was a real estate agent.
Came from Facebook. Yeah.
And we're not targeting real estate agents.
Yeah.
Right. But times are a bit challenging for real estate right now. And when times are challenging, people start looking for answers, and they're like, oh, maybe I'll try this thing I thought was weird, because maybe it's not as weird as I thought it was.
I always said education is contracyclical. When things are going great, people said, why do I need to learn something? I'm amazing. And then when things are going tough, that's when they start looking for options.
Yeah. And they're more open. They're way more open. And nothing we teach, I want to be very clear. Everything we teach is linear and boring, even though the words and the titles sound, out there. They're not. It's very, very mechanistic.
So to close the podcast, let's talk about 2024. We know it's going to be a challenging year. Like 60% of the population of the world is changing president. It's going to be a complicated social, politically year, all that. So, top three recommendations for someone to have an amazing year in 2024.
Flexibility of behavior. I cannot stress this
Flexibility of
enough.
behavior.
You have to be able to adapt, and in order to be able to adapt, you need more tools in your toolbox than you've ever had before, because it's not one size fits all. You can't just hunker down and use a hammer for everything. You're going to need to be able to apply, pivot, change. And what I want to say is, I can appreciate how daunting change looks, because it's so many things changing so quickly. But the other thing you need to get, and this is informed by studying the myth of chaos. If you look up the ancient myth of chaos, chaos was required for the new um, system, if you will, to be built. So when things are chaotic, sure, they feel intense and it's challenging, but at the same time, rapid breakthrough change is possible when things are chaotic. That is not possible when things are stagnant.
There's a quote that we have from a Formula One driver that said, "When the pavement is dry, it's very, very hard to overcome one car. When it's raining, I could overcome 15 cars."
Right.
Because it's a much better place because of all the drama and the chaos. 100%.
But of course, the drama and the chaos. And so how do you thrive amidst the drama and the chaos and leverage it and keep your wits about you? Have a clear goal, know what you want, and make sure you have the tools. It's not enough to just think positively. I'm sorry. I would love to say that it is. If you can't think positively, you're sunk, because you have to focus on what you want. But you have to understand a little bit. I mean, what does it say over the ark at Delphi? It says, know thyself. You have to know yourself, and you have to know that you are made of more than you think you are. And everything in your life has brought you to this point to allow you to reach down and find that next level. It's there, and this is the environment that will call for it. So I'm excited for 2024, and a little bit like, ooh, what's it going to be?
It could be your best year, or it could be your worst.
I plan to make it my best.
Very cool. All right, Gina, if someone wants to learn from you and follow your work, can they follow you? What's your channel on YouTube?
My link tree is probably the easiest way, because it contains anything that's changing. So linktr.ee, right? linktr.ee/Gina Mollicone, GinaMollicone. That will bring you to all my stuff, all my social, all my everything. But honestly, it's really not about me. Like, I wish it was. I wish I was like some famous rock star, but it's not. It's about the content, and that's at greatnessu.com. Greatness, the letter U.com. And that's really what we're all about.
Very cool. Very cool. Gina, always a pleasure to talk to you. I always learn a lot. I love how your mind works. You're million a mile and getting from all these pockets and how you connect things. Very, very cool. Thank you very much for that. All right, guys. Hope you learned a lot. It's interesting. You have to put psychology, engineering, systems all together, and that's what creates all these breakthroughs.
And a little bit of ancient magic, right, with hypnosis.
Gina, thank you. Great pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me.